When we moved out of the city for a little while during COVID, I said, let me just start writing stories. So every morning I'd wake up and start into the habit of writing. And then that evolved eventually into waking up 3 days a week around 5 and getting a bunch of writing done until 7 o'clock.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm Melanie Johnson, your host today again for the Elite Publishing Podcast. So we have a really awesome author today who has written a book about real estate called The Pursuit of the Home. And we're going to dive deep into his journey about that. His name is Scott Harris. Hey Scott, welcome.
Hey Melanie, great to be here.
All right, so talk about your book. Just give us a short little bit about who you are, and then we're going to dive into your publishing journey.
Sure. I've been a real estate agent in New York City, in Manhattan specifically, for the past almost 25 years. I've sold billions of dollars of real estate, and last year launched my own real estate firm here in Manhattan. And about 6 years ago, I realized that I had this desire to write a book about my experiences. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but I knew that I had really fun stories and that I could bring my own I've been writing a blog for 15 plus years. So It was like having so much fun writing already. And I knew I wanted to do something longer form. And I needed to give it, ultimately became this book, The Pursuit of Home.
What has the book done for you? Like, how have you used your book in your real estate business? Has it brought you increased revenue, new clients, new opportunities, open new doors?
I'll start at the other side, which is to say the writing of the book was such an incredible, and at every step, as I got clearer and clearer first on what it was that I wanted to say, what was the kind of the crux of the book. And then as I was explaining, I started to learn, how do I do what I do? Right? It actually enabled me to get clear on how we do our business. And so I could articulate my value proposition so much more clearly, not just to clients and to the world, but to my agents internally. What do we do? What do we do differently than other real estate agents? Because a lot of people think we're all the same, and we're definitely not the same. And then in terms of creating social media content and just having the creative juices flowing, for me, it's a lot of writing and being on social media through kind of writing and video. It gave me a chance to just take nuggets and ideas and put them out there. But how do I tell all these stories with a lot of compassion? And just to get clear, like, what are my own values as a real estate agent, and how do I more clearly put those out there? But yes, on the other side, I've handed books out. People are like, oh, I read your book and I know that I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z. And so there's a little bit of like pre-training that has been really fun as well.
And I think that's so true. When you write a book, it's almost like either a year's or 2 years worth of therapy or business coaching, because you don't necessarily stop and really answer all those questions. As a business owner, you're like, okay, yeah, I know the process is all in my head. I explain it maybe on a quarterly basis, monthly basis, weekly basis, bits and pieces of it. But do I have it documented that I can actually share with my team and have clarity myself of really having it in there? What was your writing process like? Did you hide away for a weekend? Were you doing it every week? Did you repurpose your blogs for your book? You did mention something about that you interviewed some realtors.
Yeah, the way someone described my style, and I think it's been true, like whether I'm a musician at heart, I've always been a creative for my whole life. It's very documentary style. So I just decided, actually during COVID, after having a lot of time off from real estate, because in New York City, we weren't allowed to actually show properties for about 3 months. All of this music started to flow out. And so I was like, let me just have fun with that. And then when we moved out of the city for a little while during COVID, I said, let me just start writing stories. So every morning I'd wake up and start into the habit of writing. And then that evolved eventually into waking up 3 days a week around 5 and getting a bunch of writing done until 7 o'clock when my kids go to school, or on the weekends, or like on a Friday, for instance, I might write at 11. And then on a Sunday, I might write until 11, 12, something, just give myself a huge chunk of time. As the book evolved, and then eventually as I knew I had a publishing deadline, I started to crank. And so instead of just doing it 3 days a week, I started doing 4 or 5. I stopped exercising. I was writing 7 days a week. But it was all early morning. That's when the house was the quietest. I've got 3 kids, so it was the quietest for me to feel productive.
So how did you go about picking a publisher? Because if you don't know anything about the business, sometimes that's difficult.
I feel really blessed as a real estate agent in New York City. I meet people from every profession, every walk of life, people doing finance, people in creative, people in any number of things. And that includes having a number of friends who are in the publishing world. And
Nice.
so I had them as touchstones. As I was reaching out, a lot of this is it's so scary and you feel like, oh, I'm afraid to talk about it. You have to talk about it. You have to talk about the idea. You have to workshop it a little bit. You have to
Mm-hmm.
feel confident enough that you have this idea that's not fully formed and that it's
Yeah.
not going to be perfect when you set out. There are the two parts. One is like the book proposal that you need
Mm-hmm.
to develop. You're going to a business plan for the book. Why does anybody want to buy this book? And then the second piece, of course, is the book itself. I was writing it, and then I would take a break, and I would write the proposal. And I actually ended up bringing on someone to help me with the proposal. I was bouncing off the proposal off of some of my friends in publishing
Yeah.
and sharing early drafts with people that who I knew would be constructively full of
Mm-hmm.
love when they would look at the writing itself. And that enabled me to get a little bit more confident over time.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also needed to network like crazy. I knew I needed to find a literary agent if I
Mm-hmm.
was going to go the more traditional route. And that
Yeah.
was my vision for the book, was to do a more traditional publishing route. And I did it for let's say a year earlier, and I struck out. I realized the book wasn't ready. Learned later as I evolved the book. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I shared that with real people,
Yeah.
right? My sister-in-law was a senior editor at Random House and Simon & Schuster. So I felt like I had a decent handle on how not to be prepared
Yeah.
for the process. And
Yeah.
so you got to give yourself a lot of grace to figure this out. But eventually it was similar to like what I do as a salesperson, like making lists, following up, reaching out, following up, reaching out. And then I said, wait a minute, this brute force thing's not working as well.
Yeah.
I reached out on LinkedIn to a bunch of people to see who was connected. Then I reached out strategically to friends and people I knew. Hey, I see that you know this person. And of course, most of these turned into nothing.
Yeah.
But then a couple of people did make real introductions, and I had a couple of literary agents that were interested in helping me find a publisher, one of whom I felt much more connected to, and that's who I decided to work with. And then luckily, within a month of that, we got it all structured, we sent it out, and had a couple of different publishers who wanted to work with the book.
Was the publisher that you went with, did it end up being a traditional publishing house or something different?
Before we found the agent and the publisher, I had a PR person who was like, oh, talk to these different online publishers. And I had really interesting conversations with them. But there was this nagging feeling that that I wasn't going to be ready to deliver a product, that I needed to have more editorial partnership.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up hiring a literary agent, going with a traditional publisher house that
Uh-huh.
felt like the right fit. And it gave me that extra amount of time, both the structure, okay, you have a deadline, like how are you going to finish this? Who are the readers that you're gonna open your heart and soul to and pour it here? Please read this and come back with feedback. And then I sort of went like working with someone myself to, once I had it in a certain level of shape, to like actually bounce back and forth and give myself enough time for real feedback so that
Yeah.
I could write it, rewrite it, edit it, and so on. And then also give myself enough time to get away from it, because you need to give yourself space as well. That by the time, honestly, when I turned in the first draft, I knew I had 3 more versions. This is as good as it's going to be for now. I was like exhausted. I
It's a
feel
lot.
I was shot. And I think that's a good sign. If you're not emotionally spent, having gotten it
Mm-hmm.
to that point, maybe you need to work on it a little bit more, because it's like you got to pour it all out there, and then you'll regenerate and you'll have more energy, and then you come back for the first round of edits, that once they come back to you a month later. But my view is you have to give yourself enough time for the creative process to take hold, and don't rush it. Oh my God, like when? This is coming out in a year? But
Yeah.
if you have a promotional plan, that all that stuff does take time to come together.
Yeah. So what was your promotional plan? How did the book launch go? What did you do?
I know
And things that worked and things that you felt didn't work too, because that's always really helpful.
well, of course, I think you get excited about shiny objects. I never was writing this to make money. It was more, I felt really called that spiritually,
Mhm.
like I had a calling to that this book needed to be in the world and no one else had written it. And I have a
Mhm.
unique voice. I wanted to make sure that it got out into enough hands and that I was able to find a way to help it become a bestseller. So that was a really
Mhm.
important push for me for a lot of different reasons. I leveraged relationships across the brokerage industry and all of this other, stuff that I felt like I could get it out there and do that. So I partnered with someone to help me figure out how to make sure it got sold enough kind of early on to become a USA Today bestseller. I was very proud of that. We hired a PR firm. And I would say that, of course, I'm never going to name names, but my feeling on the PR side was that perhaps there are other avenues and ways to do that are more cost effective. And I feel like the PR industry and the publishing, it's a challenge, right? So
Mhm.
being on podcasts like this, talking about the book are probably the most impactful, and just
Mhm.
like calibrating, making sure you get enough. You think, oh, I'm going to get an endorsement from someone like Barbara Corcoran endorsed my book and a few other folks. And I was like, oh, that people think, oh, that's just going to sell 10,000 copies. But the truth is, you need to really prepare for just good old fashioned talking about the book and marketing it and just being consistent and trusting that it'll get into the right hands. The most important thing is that you write a book that you're proud of, that you
Yeah.
feel, and that it's more about the quality of what you've done. That should be the overarching
Mhm.
thing, in my view.
My background is television. I used to own TV stations, and I've never been a true fan of PR as much as I should be, especially the market has changed so much. I think if you're doing podcasts like this and doing a podcast tour, that's a much better investment of doing that because you're still creating the content. Because whether it's maybe you're going to get a little credibility, but if you're just on local TV, because most people are going to be more local than they are national. But I've even had authors that were on the Today Show and
Right,
they sold 85 books that day.
right,
So it
right.
just doesn't move the needle like it used to. Yeah, you're going to get that clip, but then it's going to go away. You got to keep posting it all the time. And I think the best advice for any author is
Yep,
a lot of authors forget about their book. Right? It's a year from now, and you're like on to the next shiny object, and you're not talking about the book anymore. So, if you're
yep,
still sending your book out to prospects or to clients or companies that you want to be your client, and still posting it about social media, still doing some interviews about it and your philosophy, and doing it even 5 years from now, because the book is still going to be relevant, especially with the topic and the system that you chose to do it with.
yeah.
Oh,
I write a Substack that comes out every week, right? So
mm-hmm.
it's called The Pursuit of Home. It's like, what's the emotional side of real estate? Go
Yeah.
behind the scenes. What are people going through? And trying to
Mm-hmm.
keep it. So to me, it was always something that I cared about. Like I care
Yeah.
about people and what they go through. And if nowhere out there is anybody talking about what's the emotional journey that people take when they go to buy a home. Still
Right.
need. It's so much a part of my professional life and really personal life because I'm just a help. I'm here to serve people. Really, at the end of the day, whatever that looks like. So it's the book is just it's a natural extension of myself. And if I can I give it away. I talk about it. I do speaking things. It's really fun. I love it. And it's one of those things where you have something concrete that was in your head and your
Mm-hmm.
heart. Um, it's a way to model for your children. I told my kids,
Sure.
he's writing a book. To them, like the book is happening. It's not, is it going to happen? Like all these other things that are doubts and fears that come into an author's head. Oh God, what if nobody blah, blah, blah. And you're like, no,
You get that
kids,
all the time
you
from
got to
authors.
finish the book, dude, because when you get it out there and you're publishing it and whatever, and you're proud of the end result, like your kids say, oh, the way I'm supposed to live my life is that I have the stick to itiveness to go and see things all the
Mhm.
way through. Not just me, but like that's what they should be doing with their own lives, whatever that looks like, not a book, whatever projects and passions that they want to follow.
And I think that is it so many different levels that it helps you, helps your family, leaves a legacy in so many ways. And I tell authors, and you were getting into, I say, getting into the mud of it. Oh my gosh, I've got to read this again. I'm exhausted. I have to read my book again and taking that time to write it. But I tell you, if you slow down and you actually do it, then you have something that you have thousands of pieces of content that you can repurpose for social media, things you can make. You can even make a course out of your book and sell the course separately. So,
Of
I mean,
course.
there's
For
your social media team has thousands of things they can use. You can make videos from it. So, a lot of different ways you can use your book. Thanks for sharing your journey today and tell people where they can find you if they want to
well,
hire you to be their agent in New York.
certainly if they want to learn more about the book and all of that part, they can go to pursueyourhome.com. If they want to find out more about and my real estate firm, Magnetic, they can go to me.com and they can find all about what it means to buy and sell home in New York City.
Terrific. Thanks, Scott. We'll see you next time. Everybody keep writing and have a fantastic week.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.